Uno. Hola a todos, qué alegría encontrarnos aquí en el segundo set del día del Pabellón del Conocimiento de COLOMBIATEX de las Américas 2025 Regeneración, un espacio en el que se dan cita los speakers más top de la industria de la moda para plantear reflexiones y ampliar nuestra visión de futuro. Les recuerdo que estaremos aquí hasta mañana 30 de enero en el Pabellón del Conocimiento en Caja de Madera, Plaza Mayor, Medellín, para aprender con expertos que llegan a compartir su experiencia y conocimiento con las nuevas perspectivas de la moda. Les recuerdo que quienes no nos pueden acompañar aquí de manera presencial pueden hacerlo vía streaming a través de colombiatex.com. Además, tengo varias invitaciones muy especiales para estos 2 días de feria. La primera es que pueden visitar el Café de Rigo aquí en el cubo amarillo del pabellón Inspiración. También tenemos la Casa Rigo Cycling Resort ubicada en el mismo lugar en el segundo piso. Aquí podrán recibirlos, hablar de negocios en un ambiente único, con la calidez y el estilo que caracteriza a nuestro querido Rigo. También los queremos invitar a visitar el stand de Inexmoda Fashion Snoops para conocer más acerca de nuestra plataforma de tendencias, una herramienta que te permitirá investigar, transformar y crear de forma interactiva. Estamos ubicados en el pabellón verde, en el stand 012. Ahora sí, sin más preámbulos, vamos a dar inicio a este segundo día del set de conocimiento con la primera conferencia del día. Esta conferencia es en inglés, así que quienes deseen pueden adquirir sus equipos de traducción simultánea ubicados detrás de estas escaleras a mi lado izquierdo. Deben llevar su documento de identidad, el cual les será regresado al finalizar la conferencia. Quiero darle entonces la bienvenida a Jaye, vicepresidente de Fashion Snoops, con su conferencia Macrotrends 2027 Fashion Snoops. Vamos a recibirla con un fuerte aplauso.
Gracias. Hello. So today we will be talking through our 2027 macro trends. This report just went live on our site in December, but we are so thrilled to give the opportunity and this sneak peek kind of at our big shifts that are pushing the trends that you see behind you forward. So if you're not familiar with Fashion Snoops, before we dive in, I'm going to give you a little bit about us. We are a creative futures agency that empowers curious creators to chart a path through thriving business. We have a global office. Our offices are in New York City, London. We also have satellite offices in Paris, Thailand, and India, with sales representation in over 15 countries. We have clients globally, and we've been around for 24 years. So let's walk through, before we dive into our macro trends, we'll talk a little bit about our methodology for forecasting. We see these trends as stories about the future, shaped by what we know now. So things like legislation, technology, population shifts, economics. All of this is what we study to then predict the product development that you see within the trends. So this year's report follows a very clear structure. We start with these key signals that are happening now that point to where things are headed, and then we make 5 bold predictions. Not definitive outcomes, but strong indicators of what to prepare for. And then finally, we provide thought starter questions to really help you apply these insights to your own business. So here they are. Here's our 5 macro trends. These just launched. Today, for the purpose of this presentation, we're only going to be going through the first 3 as they're very in-depth. But if you would like to explore these more, we'll have a QR code at the end of the presentation where you can connect with us to see the presentation further. So let's jump in. So our first macro trend is called good growth. We wanted to dedicate one macro to discuss some seismic shifts to the bottom line over the next few years. This macro stands at the intersection between responsibility and economic growth. They're often pitted against each other, but we're forecasting that a combination of these elements through smart, bold investments is just what the economists ordered. So why? So Well, for a long time, the global economy has operated on autopilot, and the impacts of this have been seen everywhere, from an immense lack of creativity in the marketplace to a supply chain lacking stability and efficiency, which begs the question, what happens when these business as usual tactics no longer work, and instead they amplify instability within economics? What would an evolution outside of these traditional strategies look like, and how can they help you stand apart? So let's start by taking a look at a few drivers that brought us to this point. Where are we now? Shifting market forces are turning optional investments into necessities. Here's what's driving the change. New markets are leading innovation. Annual investments in the global South and East are now totaling $908 billion, fueling advancements in mobility, fintech, and healthcare. And in 2023, LATAM was the fastest growing venture capitalist market, securing $15.7 billion above anyone else globally. We're also seeing that the idea of cheap is actually becoming really expensive. There's a lot of regulations and economic shifts that are raising the cost for low-cost production, especially in fast fashion. So places like New York and California, they're pushing for responsible textile manufacturing laws, where the EU policies like the Global Plastics Treaty and the Extended Producer Responsibility aim to enforce sustainability, and therefore it's making it really hard to be cheap. And then third, there's this human toll on all of it that's really reshaping business. From the climate disasters alone have cost the global economy $2 trillion. And then you pair that with all of these workplace-related mental and physical health problems that we're seeing. In the US last year alone, that was a $280 billion annual cost. So we're seeing a lot of countries kind of come up and try to combat that. Places like Australia are already passing laws to combat work-induced stress and bullying. So the definition of profitability is really evolving. It's making ethical, sustainable, and human-centric investments essential for long-term success. So where are we going? So our big 5 bold predictions over the next few years are that we're seeing that local investment is actually providing tomorrow's greatest source of sustainability. We're also seeing that the quality conversation is only growing more relevant, and that a revived era of experimentation and creativity will require a very bold vision. Centering people is also the largest and most underrated source of growth. And it's time to see sustainability as this source of abundance, instead of a source of burden. So for today's presentation, I'm going to walk through 3 of these predictions a little bit further. So the first one is local investments will be driving future sustainability. Tariffs, I mean, we can really talk about that one. They've been a really hot topic in the US elections, but especially in the past few days. But trade restrictions were already increasing before that. And combined with the post-pandemic supply chain issues, businesses are shifting to a China plus one strategy to reduce the reliance on a single region. This is leading to more diversified trade, as seen in the BRICA nations investing heavily in infrastructure, like the new $3.5 billion port in Peru. This enables trade directly between China and South America, completely bypassing North America. We're also seeing that there's an expanded global production. It doesn't just strengthen supply chains, it boosts income, pride, and brand affinity in emerging markets. Apple's experience highlights this. Its investment in India has driven iPhone adoption, while in Indonesia, the iPhone 16 is actually banned due to their local manufacturing requirements. And the shift towards this close-to-home production is also an opportunity for businesses to create more culturally relevant products and messaging while addressing labor and environmental concerns. The Global South and East are emerging as major markets, making local partnerships a strong long-term strategy. Our next one is really looking at the fact that quality is making a comeback. We're seeing that consumers are done with overconsumption and they're willing to invest in quality. For years, there's been this debate over whether consumers truly care about quality. While price remains a top priority, especially in apparel, shifts in consumer behavior and new regulations signal a coming change. Fast fashion giants like Shein and Temu, they've pushed pricing to rock bottom, but competition in this space is tightening. Meanwhile, circularity and secondhand markets are booming, reigniting demand for products with lasting material value as younger consumers thrift and trade up. Expectations for new products to meet higher quality standards are rising. So across the market, signs are pointing to quality resurgence. Investigations into poor working conditions at luxury houses like Dior and Armani have hurt their brand's prestige. At the same time, a lot of mid-tier brands, particularly ones we see in the US and Europe like Abercrombie and Fitch, they're actually gaining traction over a lot of these discounters like TJ Maxx, thanks to their reinvestments in better materials and craftsmanship. So regulations are also pushing for more transparency. The idea of a digital product passport, or DPPs, already was being introduced by the company Tesco, and it will make labor practices and material sourcing more traceable, meaning cheap, exploitive production will lose its cost advantage. So in the end, the more is more approach to mass production is unsustainable, and the future lies in higher standards, better pricing strategies, and a renewed emphasis on lasting quality. And lastly, creativity and a bold vision is really going to be what defines the next era. In the early 2020s, we thrived on the mass appeal and this kind of copy and paste marketing, with brands optimizing algorithms rather than originality. But as culture is decentralizing, differentiation is now essential in a marketplace that has increasingly felt bland. I'm sure a lot of you have started to feel bored by your Instagram feeds. So at the same time, we're also seeing that deregulation in the US and other countries could lower business costs. But rather than just cutting expenses, companies should reinvest in R&D, from market research to material innovation. So true creativity often emerges from solving new problems or approaching challenges differently. CES 2025 actually highlights this with this groundbreaking product. Like, they had an AI-powered cane that was using Bluetooth for navigation. So essentially, it was kind of creating its own category based on need. And with the economic and consumer shifts favoring experimentation, the brands that take a bold risk and push creative boundaries will stand out and drive real growth. So with these predictions in mind, here are a few prompts that might spark new considerations or ideas within your role or organization. Really kind of looking at how can you build trust by measuring the consistent impact of your sustainability and purpose-led initiatives. How can your business forge meaningful partnerships in new markets that will last? And then how can you become an industry leader who reintroduces excitement and innovation into the marketplace? So our next macro trend is called the human variable. For 2026, we had a macro that was called Amplified Being that explored the ways in which technology and AI will augment humans. With human variable, we explore more how humans will amplify the technology instead, or how if technology worked towards the upliftment and elevation of mankind, what opportunities could be opened up? The word human in general has become a very big buzzword today. We feel like, everything from banking to healthcare, people are using the idea of human as a selling point. But looking into the future, I don't think it's a question of either or, but both. Technology and AI are becoming the baseline. So if technology is this fixed point, then the human variable is what allows us to derive value from it and set ourselves apart. So where are we now? We're seeing that the idea of the digital well-being debate intensifying. Australia recently banned social media for kids under 16, reflecting this growing concern over technology's impact on mental health and loneliness. However, some argue that strict bans don't always work. The others highlight tech positive roles in fostering creativity and providing social spaces for young people. We're also seeing that AI is now a necessity. It's not a luxury. 95% of US executives are prioritizing AI investments, and 45% of European managers report cost savings and profit boost from AI adoption. At the same time, job displacement fears are rising, so with the 2 out of 3 European employees worried about becoming obsolete. And then you have the demand for personalization, which is becoming relentless. 70% of Americans expect businesses to recognize them and their history, and 75% of Gen Z would drop a brand over the lack of personalized experiences. However, we're growing skeptical around this kind of AI-driven data collection. It's really fueling the idea of this digital privacy moment, with increasing backlash against the idea of algorithm tracking. So as technology evolves, you can kind of see that there's a balance between innovation, personalization, and a digital well-being that's going to be key. So given everything that's kind of going on, where are we headed? What are our opportunities here? Our bold statements are that, one, we're seeing that tech-positive alphas will really inspire a compassionate era of computing. We're also seeing that if all things are possible, then the idea will really be what matters. And then 3 is that a market for algorithmic curation awaits. And 4, that AI will force us to confront major accessibility gaps. And that 5, technology is really the next chapter that lies in not just solving, but enlivening. So for today's presentation, I'll go through 3 of them. The first one is one of my favorites. We're talking about the new generation of alphas and how absolutely tech savvy they are. And they're much more compassionate in this digital era. So by 2027, the oldest Gen Alpha will be 17. They've grown up completely immersed in smartphones and social media, making them the first real true digital natives. So as AI and technology evolve, alphas set the standard for seamless digital integration. They don't see a divide between physical and digital worlds at all. If we adopted this mindset, how could we change the way that we work and live and connect? What opportunities could really emerge if we just break down the boundary? You know, one key shift is the rise of digital citizenship. Online, censorship has both benefits and drawbacks, but new platforms like the Fediverse promote unified digital identities. This, along with growing online toxicity, makes responsible digital behavior more important than ever. In response, we may see tests and certifications for digital literacy, measuring how well we navigate technology, interact online, and use AI ethically. Businesses will also need to meet these standards. And then we're also loving how alphas are recognizing the emotional value of technology. It's not just about functionality. As they gain influence, we can expect a new focus on emotional intelligence and computing, where tech is designed to support well-being. So one example of this is the Digital Thriving Playbook, which helps gaming developers create experiences that prioritize player well-being. They even collaborate with kids to develop solutions that work for them. So ultimately, the alphas are really leading the way and making technology more human-centered, more ethical, and emotionally aware. Our next one is that we're seeing a new market for human-guided algorithmic curation. Kyle Shaka's book, Filtered World, describes algorithmic anxiety, and I'm sure we have all felt that. That uneasy feeling when our feeds suck us in, thank you TikTok, and ads, you feel like they're following you everywhere, and we lose control over what we're seeing. People are now starting to push back against that automated algorithm, but they still want personalization. And this creates the demand for human-powered curation, where real judgment plays a bigger role in filtering content. So with AI-generated clutter, misinformation, and ads flooding the internet, human oversight is becoming more important than ever. You're seeing platforms like Blue Sky, which lets users choose their own algorithms, set a new standard. We're also seeing that better universal privacy and preference settings across platforms are moving beyond this outdated kind of like cookie tracking, which I'm all sure we're very familiar with. The algorithmic engineer will become a very key role, working alongside AI assistants that help users navigate the internet with their teams. So crowdsourced recommendations like those on Reddit, or will also be used to grow trust along with guide consumers in both digital and real world spaces. So ultimately, it's all about balancing automation with human input. While 60% of people in the UK and Germany in a study preferred algorithm-driven decisions, they still trusted human-made decisions more. And this tension is really what's going to be shaping the future of online experiences. And lastly, in a world where everything is possible, your ideas will be your most valuable asset. AI is advancing so fast that by 2030, experts predict that movies could actually be personalized dreams, meaning high-quality content will be abundant and very easy to create. When quality is no longer the challenge, originality and creativity become the real differentiators. But achieving this still requires a balance between human creativity and technology. Research shows that more ideas lead to better ideas. A concept design expert, Jeremy Utley, calls it idea flow. And since AI makes it easier to generate ideas quickly, it's essentially expanding our creative toolkit. So it's not about working against it, but working with it. And so this shift could turn brands into true thought leaders, but only if they foster a culture internally of building ideas, where collaboration, learning, and these bold thinking pieces are encouraged. So with these predictions in mind, here are a few ways to kind of think about this going forward. So if technology is the cause of a certain problem, can it also be a solution for it? How easy can you make it for people to control their own online footprint and use technology? And how can you use AI to make experiences more accessible to people of varying abilities, ways of communicating, and economics? So this is our last macro trend, and we're calling it collectively distinct. Which is all about how big shifts, like the rise of online media and remote work, have really pushed cultures around the world towards individualism. On one hand, this has helped bring attention to mental health and made room for smaller centers of influence, but on the other hand, it has worn away at our capacity for social cohesion. So looking ahead, we believe navigating this uncertain future means focusing on rebuilding those connections, strengthening the bonds between people and groups. The challenge is, how do we keep building on personal growth we've seen over the past few years, while also fostering a stronger sense of community? How do we embrace the differences within the whole? So if we kind of look at the key influences that have shaped this macro trend, we've seen this huge rise of individualism. Trends are spreading rapidly online. This is something that we talk about all the time in our landscape, and culture is becoming more uniform. While many are protecting their individuality, more so than ever, people are wanting to create their own lifestyles. And this has led to the gatekeeping kind of on social media, where some creators are avoiding sharing things like outfit details. And we're also seeing this huge rise in anti-aesthetic styles, driven by the irony and experimentation and the idea that they don't necessarily want to live in a thematic anymore. We're also seeing there's a huge investments in community and connection. The amount of conversations that we have around community these days is very wide. Loneliness was probably one of the biggest concerns of the last few years, particularly for younger generations. And so we're starting to see that both organizations and individuals are prioritizing relationship building. Community-based fitness and wellness activities are popping up left, right, and center. So things like run clubs, hike clubs, country clubs, pickleball, all of these different kind of immersive ways to get into your community and get off your phone. They're really surging in popularity. And then we're also seeing a lot of, community needs that are being unmet. So with growing distrust in governments and institutions, people are forming their own mutual aid groups based on cause, location, or subculture. So the recent LA wildfires are a great example. The US government did not do very much at all for them. However, we saw so much of the community around LA creating the drive for, clothes, furniture, all of these things to support the community. So these shifts highlight a push for self-expression, meaningful connections, and a decentralized support system in an evolving social landscape. But where are we going? So here are 5 bold statements. We feel like in a fragmented world, it will really require very niche solutions based off of subculture. And as polarization intensifies, finding points of connection are really going to be key. And businesses are going to need to get out of their silos and really create a very authentic experiences for consumers. There's also going to be a deeper search for identity that will take people further outside of their comfort zones than where we've been previously. And from that, we'll see a lot of subcultures emerge, but they're going to look slightly differently. They're not necessarily going to be associated to region, but mostly based on interest. So we'll dive a little bit deeper into 3 of these. So the first one is that we're looking at this fragmented world. It needs a lot more niche and tailored solutions. So traditionally, solutions, whether in policy or business, they were imposed from the top down. But as individuals are gaining more influence and their needs are becoming more distinct, this one-size-fits-all approach is not working at all. We see this in education is a great example, where in places like the US, we're seeing a ton of micro schools pop up all over the place as an alternative for parents that don't really believe in the US public school system. At the same time, institutions are kind of losing trust, especially as they scale back on a lot of DEI and sustainability initiatives. All of these big brands that came out, post-2020 with the DEI and sustainability cause, last year, they kind of put that in the background as inflation became and price became a bigger conversation. So as people take their own paths and lose confidence in these big organizations, smaller, more community-focused entities, they have an opportunity to step in. So without this rigid top-down narrative, companies also have more freedom to find creative value-driven solutions. Take IKEA, for example. So instead of following the standard corporate climate pledge of being climate positive for everybody by 2020, they took it one step further. They said not only will we be cutting total emissions by 50% by 2030, and it will be 90% by 2050. And this shift shows how breaking away from conventional targets can really unlock these new opportunities for impact and growth. Next, it's really time for businesses to break out of their silos. So just as individuals have learned the value of social wellness, businesses must also embrace collaboration to thrive. Conglomeration is becoming inevitable. Both large and small brands are struggling to keep up on their own. So the best way to navigate uncertainty is by building strong relationships, both internally and externally. And one great example of this is the Vanguards Group. And they've partnered with the brand development platform called Tomorrow Limited. I'm sure a lot of you might have read about this, to manage their Nashuka's global wholesale distribution. And Tomorrow Limited, which handles distribution for around 200 stockists worldwide, including like Harrods and Saks and Bergdorf's, Galeries Lafayette, Net-a-Porter, they're describing this move as a really big fundamental change of attitude between what could have been previously seen as competition. So they're highlighting the importance of collaboration over isolation in today's market. So in this new era of collaboration, deep specialization and subject matter expertise will be key advantages. But to truly meet the evolving consumer demands and compete with big AI, businesses must combine expertise while still valuing diverse perspectives within the collective. And lastly, a deeper search for identity is pushing people beyond self-commodification. So trendy archetypes like clean girl aesthetics or coquette aesthetics or all of these core aesthetics that you guys have seen over the past few years, they've driven people to consume products that align with specific identity groups. This has led to an era of extreme self-commodification, where many are now questioning what authenticity really means. So fortunately, self-expression is shifting towards more meaningful foundations. People are investing in experiences and aesthetic movements with deeper roots to their true values. In China, for example, young people are embracing the hand food trend, where wearing traditional clothing in everyday life to reconnect to their heritage is important. This search for identity is also expanding beyond aesthetics. Many are turning to volunteering, they're returning to faith and spirituality to really better understand who they are and their value system. And much of this exploration will take place offline, meaning brands must step back and observe with respect. So, however, many businesses still have a role to play, offering guidance, creating spaces for exploration, and fostering communities where people can really share their journeys. So finally, our thought starter questions for collectively distinct for your current strategies are there any unmet needs among certain niches and communities that you can address? Where can you strengthen your network to compete in the age of AI and bring partners in to fill those blind spots? And then how do you respond to trends while being respectful and encouraging the original expression and authenticity? So this was kind of a little quick sneak peek of our 5 macro trends. Like I mentioned earlier, these are all now live on the Fashion Snoops platform, which is an amazing partner of NX Moda, if you guys are interested. Something about FS as well is that we also offer advisory. So this is where we can actually support you with building custom product development strategies to consumer insight strategies, branding, licensing, expert workshops. With FS Advisory, you gain a strategic partner committed to delivering tailored solutions that align with your business. So you can actually build your own custom macro presentation if you want and feel like that would benefit your business. So if you would like to learn more, you're able to scan this QR code and we will be in touch. Thank you so much. I'm sweating.
Here is hot.
Yeah, can you take
A nuestro speaker, muchísimas gracias por este conversatorio tan interesante que compartió con todos nosotros en este segundo día del set de conocimiento de ColombiaTeX de las Américas 2025. En 20 minutos daremos inicio a la próxima conferencia, así que los queremos invitar a visitar el stand de Inexmoda Fashion Snoops para conocer más acerca de nuestra plataforma de tendencias, una herramienta que te permitirá investigar, transformar y crear de forma interactiva. Recuerden que estamos en el pabellón verde, en el stand número 012. Los esperamos aquí, no se desconecten a las 10 de la mañana. Muchas gracias.